Hello and welcome back to the Cartoonist Studio. It's a little bit late. It's always late. It's me. What are you expecting? I suppose you just keep going back to YouTube thinking, any minute now, any minute now, any minute now. And boom, here I am. I've arrived. I'm back. Well, it's been a bit of a busy week. I haven't had much of a chance to do any of my Brabbles and Bargate graphic novel, my Castle Comics graphic novel, and the Big Old Bear colouring book, the video I did from last week, because I have commission work in between it all, and I've been working on three comics pages of Kid Kong, and I draw those for a company called Rebellion Comics, and it goes into a magazine called Monster Fun, and I do that now monthly, 3 pages a month. It used to be every 2 months. It's now gone to monthly, so that's great. So that's been concentrating my mind, and I've been doing a bunch of other things as well, which have sapped the hours from the day, shall we say. So that aside, this week I've decided to do a single panel. Well, for 2 reasons. One, I can, and B, it's a bit of a change, and it's nice to do single panels every now and again. So we'll keep it a bit shorter this week than it was last week. I'm trying to find the perfect balance of how long you'll put up with me for and how much is just too long. Last week I think was too long. I was getting bored and I was doing it. So without further ado, let's go our usual ways and draw a single panel, shall we? Hello and welcome back to the studio. Now this week I'm doing a single panel. You won't get this in any of my book collections, but it will be on the cartoon stock site, which is where I go and put my cartoons for general sale to magazines, websites, greeting card companies, anyone really just needs a cartoon. It's also to show that not all cartoons have to be drawn, shall we say, upright like that, character there, very, very thin. Quite a lot of magazines now that will have them in a way that you can see them landscape rather than portrait. So, and this one's going to be more of a landscape one, and there's only the 2 human characters and their dogs, and there's a reason for this, and we'll get to that a little bit later on if I remember. Also, I'd like to point out that I'm working on stereotypes here. Now, cartoonists have always worked on stereotypes. I know that some people can get upset about it, and you've got to remember that this is just a cartoon. Now, you take themes and subjects when you're writing gags that people can identify with, automatically identify with. And this one is a light-hearted jab at vegans. Now, I have nothing against vegans. Each to their own. If you don't want to eat meat or have anything to do with the farming business model and what have you, that's absolutely fine. I have no problem with it. And I'm not having a go at them. I'm just using them as a bit of light ribbing. So if you are a vegan, don't be offended. It's just a joke. And the stereotype comes in the way that I draw the vegan. So there you go. There's the disclaimer. Nothing nasty, but when you're writing jokes, if I wrote about a vegan and I drew them in a wedding dress, you'd wonder why they were in a wedding dress. If I draw them with a man bun and a beard, you tend to sort of like, it goes well with it. It goes well with what it is that I'm trying to do. So that's the stereotype side of things. Yeah, and also because of the nature of the point of the joke, I don't want scenery in it, because scenery would just confuse the overall look. And once again, we'll get to that when we're closer to completing it. Right, so this is your first. This is not the vegan. Do you notice I always do these little, I don't know what they are. Sometimes I'll give them little warts and stuff like that. And I think it comes from the expression warts and all, draw them warts and all. And I think I do. I mean, I have no idea the full reason behind it. But there you go. Anyway, this guy's eating a fair size sandwich. Right, there you go. We'll have some ham or some lettuce maybe popping out of it as well. And there's his other finger. So there we go. So there's your first man. And we'll draw his dog. I'm not going to draw a massively caricatured dog, just a dog intent on what's going on above him. The begging, if you like. There you go. That's the first time. Actually, I think it's the first time I've broken down the shape of a dog. But there we go. It's a kind of a teardrop, a kind of a bell, like that, bell shape. Then here's the one leg. He's begging, so let's have the classical. But let's have the other one down here. And tail for once, perfectly still. There we go. Right, there's one dog desperately concentrating on what's going on above. Now, let's move to your vegan. So, what you been doing this week? I've been busy. I've been doing all sorts. We've set up, like I mentioned in the introduction, I've been doing Kid Kong. I've tried to do a few other things, but it's just it's concentrated my mind. It always does. It always concentrates my mind when I have to do things like Kid Kong. This video should be a little shorter than last week's because, of course, it was nearly, and I think it was like about 30 seconds off an hour. It was too long. That was just way too long. Some people enjoy that, but I think it's when you go through to your algorithms from YouTube, they sort of say, you know, people only watched about 10% or 20% or 30% of it. You've got to try and get the percentage up of the amount of time that people spend on your videos. And 1 hour is just too long. I know other artists do. If they're doing a painting or something, they can be like 1 hour and 20 minutes, but it's a little bit different. It wasn't a painting. Now, I know that people don't have their trousers rolled up anymore, but we are talking stereotype of someone who is, by and large, the sort of the approach of the vegan or the vegetarian, it's more of a type of a hippie type. So I'm working with stereotypes. I've seen many vegans. I follow some vegans actually on YouTube. They do a travel one. It's called Those Happy Days. I love their program. Now they're vegans. They're literally traveling around. Well, they're in India at the moment, but they travel around the country, the world, and they're looking for vegan cooking, vegan food places, and they don't look anything like this. So right, there you go. There's your vegan, and here is his dog. This is the reason why it has to be a landscape cartoon. Is that right? Shall I give you the punchline now, or shall I wait until the very end? Actually, it's going to be word balloons, so we'll wait till the very end. It's going quite well, isn't it? It's going quite fast. So if you see my hand moving around, I'm checking on a reference picture I've got over there. I think We'll bring that paw a little bit back here. And we'll shade it. I was really struggling on what I was going to do for YouTube, which is why it's a bit late this week. Really struggling on what I was going to do. And so eventually went with this one. I was going to, like I said, I've mentioned this in the past, I was going to do one where I'm showing you inking the same picture twice, but using the pen brushes as opposed to an actual brush. But I'm still not quite happy with the content idea of that just yet, so I left it. And also, I mentioned last week that I wanted to do another, me drawing another well-known cartoon. And I wasn't too sure whether it was going to be Hagar, The Wizard of Id, or BC. Well, literally 20 minutes after I finished filming the last video, I wrote the joke. I said it would have to wait until I got the joke written. And I wrote the joke, and it's going to be a Hagar. And I will probably be doing that next week. So that's the second one in the series. I really do want to do a lot more. I've had a few suggestions off you of cartoons you'd like to see me tackle. If you've got any more, let me know. Now, here we go. Now, this is, to me, this is important when drawing a cartoon. I don't like to just draw a dog in a basic position. So what I've done is I've imagined what the dog would be like. He's got his nose down, he's sniffing. The one paw is up, the other one's behind, this one's down flat. And then this one is just coming up behind, like he's moved on, but he's stopped. So there we have it. That's all I'm going to do on this. I'll give it a little bit of stuff going on around here, maybe some stones. And that's it. We don't want any scenery because the important bits here are the sandwich and the dog. If I put a hill here and a tree up there and all that sort of, yes, it's in the park, that's all interesting, but it will detract from what it is that I want to say. And that's very important. Right, so there we go. That's the penciling. I think we now need to go away jolly high speed, and I'll come back with the paintbrushes because they're all clean. We all know the trouble I had last week, covered 3 or 4 houses in ink, and we'll come back and we shall brush it. And this can also be done in pen because they're single panels and they're reduced to such ridiculous postage stamp style things. Sometimes sitting there with a brush painstakingly producing the lines is seen as somewhat of a waste of time, but I still prefer the way it looks, so I'm gonna leave it at that. So I shall see you, I should probably see you in a split second on the video, but I shall see you in about a minute or so in real life. I lied. I do that a lot. I forgot we haven't put the wording in. Now this is really going back old school because I'm lettering it by hand. I could do it on the computer, but sometimes it's nice to letter it by hand. Just work off the guides. Now a lot of cartoonists in the olden days, now I would just use the one line. I'd use the bottom line as a guide. But they sort of do this and then they do another very thin line here. They do another line underneath it and then they use the top and bottom as a guide. I don't do that. Never have done. It's called freehand for a reason. What we got now? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think 4 should. I'll give it 5 and I'll probably drop down a line. Yeah. Let me drop down a line. I won't start there, I'll start there. Let's give that a way. Let's give that a go, shall we? Right, so what is it? I'll go quiet now whilst I write this out, otherwise I'll make spelling mistakes. You do know that I'm dyslexic, don't you? Yeah, I had to teach myself to spell. It was a long journey. Yeah, right, that's that bit. And here comes the punchy line. Ta-da! Reels of canned laughter. And I like in single panels to give it more of a square panel. Don't know why I differentiate between this and my comics, where it's an ellipse. But here, for some reason, I like to do it this way. There you go. So now we're going to go ahead and get some inking done. So I'm going to be about 450 hours whilst I try and find the brushes and the ink and all the other paraphernalia I need. I shall see you soon. Bye again. We're back. I'm going to the inking in a bit, but I think we'll put the lettering in first, because otherwise I'll be going over here and smudging stuff, or possibly smudging stuff. Now I'll use 2 pens for this. This is a number 2, and I'll probably use a number 7 if I can find it. Do I have a number 7? Probably not. A number 5. That's no good. Oh, well, number 5 will have to be it. It's the largest one I've got. Just to, so as I get certain words I want to emphasise, I can bring them a little bit larger. So we just start off now. I once read a book on how to draw cartoons years ago. I used to buy all the books that are out there because that's all you could get. It was before YouTube and people like me helping you out. I had to buy the books on how to draw cartoons. Some of them are absolute rubbish. Some of them... in a second, how did you... That's it. I'll have that larger. Right, so these are the smaller ones. Yeah, showed me... And this one book was pretty good. Can't remember who did it, but it was quite good. And he had a section there on lettering. And he said that when you do it, make it look like it's hanging off something. Hence the reason why it goes slightly up in the air. See? There you go. Rather than... I'll do it on here because I know it's going to look horrible, but I can get rid of it. No, I'll get a separate piece of paper. You've got a letter A, okay, but in cartoons it's like that, and a B, which would normally be like this, is like that. So it's almost like it's hanging. You can imagine there's a washing line, and you've got a peg, and it's holding it up. It will be sort of dragging down a bit. Same here. You know, and what was another one? H, I suppose, yeah. H is normally, so you go, there you go. I remember that, and I learnt it all, got myself, is that right? Yeah, sorry, just the word didn't look right, dyslexia again, very confusing. So I learnt that, and it stuck in my head, and I learnt how to letter. Every night working on it, night after night after night after night. Finally got it right. My Photoshop came along, and it's all done on computer now. And these are a bit thicker, but I also draw them a bit. Sorry, I write them a little larger as well. And that's another thing. When you do it larger, I didn't do this. I forgot. I should have started the lettering about there. Just there. See, around here. Because it's bigger, it's going to go longer. So you have to sort of compensate for that as well. It's not so bad here. It's only gone a little bit further over. That would have been better if it was balanced a bit more. Final bit. And because it's a flat statement, just a full stop. There's no shouting involved. No one frightened the horses. Everything's good. Okay, now let's get on with the owl dinking. Yeah, I'll start off with the first ever brush stroke. It doesn't quite get enough brush. Sorry, enough ink on the brush. So I wouldn't attempt to do those lines. So I'll do this until it starts to get runny outy, another technical term there. Write it down, children. I'll ask questions later. If you can hear something in the background, my studio has the water tank attached to it for the house, and the Kalashnikov kid. I think she's boiling something in the hot waters, cranking away. So sorry about that, can't be helped. Okay, so there we go. I'll put a bit more ink on now. It should be able to do the word panels. I'll do them upside down because I don't want to be running my hand across the ink. I know I can clean it up in Photoshop, but Reg Smythe, or Reg Smythe, the artist and writer of Handicap, always used to say he liked, in fact he always did, the cartoons left his hand. So when they were printed, they looked like they were when they left his hand. So there was no white opaque in those days because there was no computers. There was no white opaquing out of any lines. It was just literally, as you saw it in the comic section, that's how it left his hands. No smudging of ink. And I like to try and do that. It's not always possible, but I like to try and do that if I can. It's amazing what you pick up, isn't it? You want to be a cartoonist. So you go to your hero and think, oh, whatever they did, that must be right, so I'll do that. And then as the years go by, you realise that's not quite how it works. But it's not bad to pick up. If you're going to pick up habits from the people who know what they're talking about. Not me. I mean proper cartoonists. We've discussed this before, haven't we? I love the thick and thin of a brush line. So nice. I love single panels. When I was young, and the whole world was black and white, dinosaurs still ruled the earth. When I was young, single panels used to be everywhere. I've probably mentioned it before in other videos. I'll mention it again because it's really frustrating, because it was such an underrated art. I think mainly because a lot of the artists over here particularly, they weren't that good. The art wasn't that good. The jokes might have been fine, but there was a few that were really good, like cartoonist who signed his work Sachs. He was brilliant. And who else? Clive Collins was very well. His drawings were very good. Clive Collins was the brother of Phil Collins. And he drew masterfully, beautifully produced cartoons. Then there was Nick Holt. He did some lovely stuff as well. But generally, I won't mention the names of the cartoonists who weren't very good art-wise, because that's just unfair, and I don't like doing that. But it tended to be like a lower form of cartoons, and cartoons were always seen as a lower form of art anyway. So you can imagine it was like the lower of the lower. And I think they just eventually lost their grip on the newspapers. I mean, I loved them. I loved the cartoons. Because you go in there, there'd be about 6 or 7 in a column, and then you go a bit further in the newspaper, there'd be another 2 or 3. And she just keep on finding them, just sort of dotted throughout the newspapers. I don't know how they did them in the States, if your newspapers even carried non-syndicated ones. But I used to love them, and they were everywhere. And I did, at the very early stages of my career, actually do single panels. I do about 30 a week. And I'd send them out to a variety of places, and I did used to sell them. And I always wondered that'd be a nice way to make a living, just coming up with general jokes, no set characters, just general jokes, and getting them published all over the country or the world. Just seemed like a nice gentle lifestyle. Because what they also used to do, once again, I don't know what it's like in America. If you do know, let me know, put it in the comments below. But what they used to do over here was they would work all week, feverishly away in their studios, and they produce, I don't know, however many they do, between 30 and 50 cartoons. They'd hop on the train and they'd head off up to London, because that's where all the national newspapers used to be, in a place called Fleet Street. And they go to the one that paid the most first, show the cartoons, and go to the one that paid the second most, and so on and so forth, until eventually they got to the ones that just paid a few pound or shillings or whatever it was. And then when they'd finished, because the other thing that used to happen was they would be able to they'd get money sometimes. They get a chitty, a little note from the editor. They then go down to accounts, give them the chitty, and they'd invariably give them cash for it. They get paid there and there. It was quaint, lovely. And then the artist would go out to a pub, and I forget what it's called now, but every part of Fleet Street, like all the printers would go to one pub, all the feature writers would go to another, the reporters would go to another, so on and so forth. But the cartoonists had their own pub as well. I'll try and find out what it's called. If I can, it'll be somewhere up around here. But don't hold your breath. But they'd meet there once a week, and they'd all get roaring drunk, and then get onto a train and then go off home, and then get up in the morning and rinse and repeat. And it always seemed like such a lovely lifestyle, because the only time you really saw people were people who were like-minded, cartoonists. And you'd invariably come back with a bunch of jokes as well. And this had largely ended by the time I started doing single panel, so I never really got into that scene. I'd have loved to have done, but most of them have all passed away now, cirrhosis of the liver and things like that, I should imagine. But that's what they used to do. And I bemoan those days, because it must have been lovely. Mixing up with like-minded people. You don't do that anymore. The Americans used to do it. I think there was a whole bunch of them that lived on or around this one town. What's his name? Oh, Mort Walker used to talk about it. There was him in one house, because they never used to call themselves by their names. They called themselves by their comic strips. So there was him in one house, and there was Prince Valiant in the next. It was just a whole bunch of them, and they'd sort of get together. So you did a similar type thing, but they just meet in each other's houses. British cartoonists weren't wealthy like the syndicated ones in America. There you go, another little story of the past. Be nice if it came back. So drawing single panels was a lovely thing, something I really wanted to be able to do. But I was born a little bit too late, I guess. 20, 30 years too late. But I still love doing them. It's a little bit of a concentration there, getting the t-shirt right. Once again, you see, it's not just a case of let's put his hands in his pockets. T-shirts aren't tucked in anymore, so they hang loose. When you put your hands in your pockets, then they'll fall on either side of your hand. So put that in. A little bit of authenticity. Are you enjoying this? Here we go for the usual stuff. I've got to say this. I'm a YouTuber. If you like this kind of content, then like it. And if you're not a subscriber, and you enjoy this kind of content, then hit the subscribe button. And then there'll be like a drop-down menu with notification bells. hit the top one that says all, and YouTube will beam me into your room every week. You poor unsuspecting fools. Okay, like I said earlier on, working with stereotypes. I mean, obviously that's become very unpopular now. People seem to get offended by the slightest things. Well, I'm not here to offend vegans. Like I said, nothing against vegans. It's a preference, whether it be a political or might actually be medical. It could be any sort of reasons, but whatever reason is, they prefer to eat no meat or the byproducts of it. So they're plant-based. That's fine. That's up to them. They're happy with that. That's great. So I'm not trying to have a go at vegans here. It's just that if you're a dog, you know, not known for their salad eating habits, then it could be the worst possible thing if someone threw them a piece of rice or a lettuce leaf or whatever they're actually having. And I've given my dog the food off my plate, and if there happens to be some salad there, that's going to be left. So the joke was very important that you had the sandwich and the dog. So this dog's begging because it's got meat and stuff and bread and everything in it. This dog's not interested. He's not even bothering to beg because he knows there's nothing there that he wants. And that's why you have no other background, just these two characters. Yeah, and if you do like my single panels, see, it comes a little bit of marketing. I have to do it because I don't have enough subscribers yet to be able to get any advertising. So the only way I can make any kind of money is if I make people aware of the books that I already have out there on Amazon. And one of them that is relevant to this, of course, is my book Out of the Primordial Inkpot, which is a collection of cartoons I used to do called Noodle Pates, which was by and large single panels. That's all they were. And yeah, I put a collection together. There would have been more, only my computer broke down and I lost all the cartoons from it. That's horrible it was. So I could only ever produce one of them. I've still got the originals, but not the wording. I can't always work out what it was I was going to say in the cartoons. And I'd have to recolour them all. I don't want to do that again. So it's just the one book. But if you like single panels, or more to the point, you like the sort of stuff that I produce, then yeah, there'll be a link below. The book should be above my shoulder somewhere or above my hands. And you can go and purchase yourself a copy. So I made a mistake there, you see. I have to get rid of that when it comes to photoshopping. Naughty cartoonist. And once again, even with the action of the dog here, it's important just to make that little bit of difference to it. Dog sniffing, just get the position, look at a dog, study it. Walt Disney used to send all his artists out to learn to draw animals properly. So as when they did them in a cartoon form, an animation form, they knew how an animal moved, a certain animal moved. That's what they do. Okay, put that to the one side. Get yourself an owl pen and we'll sign it, and we will call that a finished cartoon for the week. Right, well, I hope you enjoyed it. It's great having you along again. Lots shorter than last week's. Thank God, I hear you all say. And come back in a fortnight when we'll have the next one, and it will be me drawing Hagar the Horrible. Or my version. If I drew Hagar, that's how I do it. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. Like I say, in the meantime, have a lovely 2 weeks. Whatever you've got planned, I hope it's wonderful, and I hope you have a great time doing it. And I shall see you then. But for now, all the best, and goodbye for now.